Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of High School Safe Environment Plan. First, I would like you all to please turn to Psalm 139, and we will read together verses 1 through 18. I, Lord, you have probed me. You know me. You know where I sit and stand. You understand my thoughts from afar. My travels and my rest you mark. With all my ways you are familiar. Even before a word is on my tongue, Lord, you know it all. Behind and before you encircle me, and rest your hand upon me. Such knowledge is beyond me, far too lofty for me to reach. Where can I hide from your spirit? From your presence, where can I flee? If I ascend to the heavens, you are there. If I lie down in Sheol, you are there too. If I fly with the wings of dawn and alight beyond the sea, even there your hand will guide me, your right hand hold me fast. If I say, surely darkness shall hide me, and night shall be my light. Darkness is not dark for you, and night shines as the day. Darkness and light are but one. You formed my innermost being. You knit me in my mother's womb. I praise you, so wonderfully you made me. Wonderful are your works. My very self you knew. My bones were not hidden from you. When I was being made in secret, fashioned as in the depths of the earth, your eyes foresaw my actions. In your book all are written down. My days were shaped before one came to be. How precious to me are your designs, O God! How vast the sum of them! Were I to count, they would outnumber the sands. To finish, I would need eternity. The objectives of this session will be to understand you as a student, to understand your dignity as children of God. You will understand virtue and vice. You will know the practical steps for protecting yourselves from sexual abuse. And you will know how to react to abuse and to the possible threat of abuse. While an understanding of the dignity of the human person, as well as the nature of virtue and vice, are fundamental, it is in no way to be implied that those who are the victims of abuse are to blame, or that they have been abused because they were not behaving in a chaste, virtuous manner. Every human person is created in the image of God. This amazing dignity bestowed on the human race was raised even higher when God became man and died out of love for the salvation of every person. Because of the dignity with which we were created and the love by which we were redeemed by the cross, all people deserve to be revered and treated with dignity. We have an obligation to uphold the dignity of ourselves and of one another, especially the most helpless among us, children both before and after birth, the sick, the poor, and the elderly.
So what is a vice and what is a virtue? A virtue is an habitual and firm disposition to do the good. The moral virtues are acquired through human effort aided by God's grace. The theological virtues are gifts from God. A vice, though, is a habit acquired by repeated sin in violation of the proper norms of human morality. The vices are often linked with the 7 capital sins. Repentance for sin and confession may restore grace to a soul, but the removal of the ingrained disposition to sin or vice requires much effort and self-denial until the contrary virtue is acquired.
The cardinal virtues are the virtues of prudence, justice, and temperance, and fortitude. The word cardinal comes from the Latin word cardine, which means hinge. They are called the hinge virtues because every other natural virtue, not the theological virtues of faith, hope, and charity, is based upon and grows from the cardinal virtues. Prudence, discovering our true good and choosing the right means of achieving it. Fortitude and courage, firmness in the pursuit of the good. Justice, giving the proper due to God and neighbor. And temperance, moderating the attraction of the pleasures of the senses. The virtue of chastity grows from the virtue of temperance. Chastity is the spiritual power which frees love from selfishness and aggression, and is needed due to the efforts of original sin. In developing the virtue of chastity, through a proper understanding of the dignity of each person, and through the effort and practice, we look upon a person and treat him or her with respect and dignity, rather than as an object for sexual pleasure or lust. Chastity is a lifelong process of self-mastery involving training in modest behavior, protection of the senses, fidelity to prayer, reception of the sacraments, and wise guidance. In youth and unmarried adults, it involves a firm commitment to avoid situations that are likely to inflame sexual desire. Purity in thought, word, and deed is essential for chastity. The sacred gift of marital union is to be reserved for spouses in the sacrament of marriage. Until the point of committing themselves totally to one another before God, any premarital sexual activity amounts to using the other for personal gratification and pleasure. Therefore, these sins against purity and chastity are not expressions of genuine love, even if they feel loving. The usual consequences of sins against chastity include guilt, loss of innocence, great selfishness, damage to a future marriage, risk of disease, pregnancy outside of marriage, rifts in relationships with parents, depression, and, most importantly, loss of our relationship with and love for God. God has given us a plan for authentic love and chastity that guards against using other persons and that protects marriage, family, and the dignity of the human person. A vice is a bad moral habit. Technically, a vice is the strong tendencies to a gravely sinful act acquired through frequent repetition of the same act. Qualities that characterize a vice are spontaneity, ease, and satisfaction in doing what is morally wrong. While virtue forms a person, vice deforms a person. You should write down the definition of vice from the glossary of the Catholic Catechism. Spiritual direction and counseling are essential for abandoning some vices. A total and permanent separation from the near occasion of sin is necessary for someone who has struggled with a vice that can significantly damage his or her life and the lives of others. One thing you should be aware of is that you should avoid those adults who would seek to do the following: discourage other adults from participating or monitoring youth activities. Adults who always want to be alone with young people. Adults who are more excited to be with young people than with other adults. Adults who give gifts to children or young people, often without permission. Adults who seek contact that is not respectful of a young person's comfort zone. For example, unwanted hugs. An adult who always wants to wrestle or tickle, or thinks the rules do not apply to them. Adults who allow young people